This episode of the GSE podcast is brought to you by Exceed Ground Support Equipment Leasing, your trusted partner for GSE solutions. We specialize in tailored operating leases for ground handlers and airlines, offering top-notch equipment and flexible terms to suit your needs. Partner with the industry leaders. We're committed to bringing you the equipment offerings that keep your operations running smoothly and efficiently. Choose Exceed for competitive rates and exceptional customer service. Visit exceedgse.com today and soar to new heights with Exceed Ground Support Equipment Leasing.
This is Brad Compton.
This is Luke Brown.
This is Jeff Barrett.
This is Tessa Fasen, and you are listening to the GSE podcast.
All right. Welcome to the GSE podcast. I'm here with Gabe Sampson from Averest. How's it going, buddy?
It's going great. Good morning, Matt. Good afternoon, Matt. Sorry, this afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, thanks, man. So we are actually at JBT headquarters. They were nice enough to allow us to use their facility in Orlando, Florida to record this podcast. So a big thanks to JBT for supporting us. Do you work with JBT?
We do. We're a supplier to JBT, which is the reason I'm here. They were hosting a lot of their suppliers in-house for a supplier conference, learn more about their processes, learn more about the recent acquisition of JBT, and kind of celebrate our successes together and discuss some shortfallings that all us suppliers need to work on to help JBT out.
The suppliers, I mean, it's been rough, right? Getting everything to the vendors and or being a vendor, I guess, and being a supplier to the manufacturers.
Yeah, it is, and obviously, through the COVID years, as we all know, everything was hard to get. That put pressure on us as suppliers, pressure on the manufacturers. But I feel like now we're pretty much past that. It's a thing of the past. It's history, and move forward. And I think JBT's ready to move forward and move on. Yeah.
So how did you get in the industry anyway? I don't feel like I know the entire story.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story. So I went to school at a little engineering college in Georgia, just north of Atlanta, called Southern Polytechnic State University. And as soon as I graduated, a family friend reached out to me, a guy named Joe Fuquay, who's pretty well known in the industry. He's now retired, but he reached out through my parents and, was looking to hire engineers. I actually interviewed with him. An interesting little fact, he actually interviewed my brother-in-law as well at the same time. But ultimately, I landed the job and went to work for Delta Airlines as a young engineer in the ground support equipment department. So I got
so you were part of Delta GSE engineering.
That's correct. Yeah. So I worked underneath Joe Fuquay and was, responsible for all sorts of engineering tasks at the airline, testing equipment, specifying equipment, selecting new vendors, fixing problems, working on the shop floor some with the mechanics. But started the career that way.
So how many years were you at Delta?
I was at Delta for about 4 years. So started there in 1998, I believe, and worked in the ground equipment engineering department at first, and then worked in the facilities department where I was doing more with fixed equipment, things like passenger loading bridges, preconditioned air equipment, ground power equipment. And right at the end of my career at Delta, a little issue called September 11th came along that we're all very familiar with. Delta at that point, as well as the rest of the industry, was struggling and needed to get rid of headcount. And Delta approached the situation in a very generous manner and made basically severance packages available to every employee. And so I opted to take a severance package, left Delta, which, gave me a little bit of money and some great benefits, and just kind of started pursuing a different career.
Yeah, man. So, all right, let's take a pause here and talk about a story that you have. Do we have a GSE story? Because I think everybody that's been in the industry for any amount of time has a great GSE story.
I've got a lot of GSE stories. A lot of them involve drinking too many beers and having too much fun, but I won't tell any of those today. I won't name any names, but kind of an interesting story for me. When I started at Delta, I was, just a young engineer, full of bravado and energy and maybe a little bit of talent, but not too much talent at that point. And I clearly remember getting assigned a project to do a modification on a baggage tractor. So I was down working on the shop floor with a mechanic, and this mechanic looked at me. He was experienced and had way more skill set to me in terms of being a mechanic and working on equipment. And he looked right at me and he said, "Boy, you ain't never built no hot rod, have you?" And I was like, I looked at him and I didn't know what he meant by that. And he said, "You just don't look like you know what you're doing with a tool." I really didn't, right? I had a little bit of experience with hand tools and fun things, but it really defined GSE to me because, GSE is comprised of a lot of really talented technical individuals that, work on equipment day in, day out, specify equipment, buy equipment, whatever they're doing. But a lot of them have hobbies on the side that tie right into that, right? They are working on hot rods or race cars or old cars or motorcycles. It's a really hands-on, fun industry. And, I knew it was the place for me basically. So when I heard that and I digested it and understood it, I knew, man, this is a cool industry. Like I like the fact that I can get my hands dirty, still work on engineering tasks and, never look back. Right. Been in the industry ever since.
Yeah. I think our mutual friend, Brian Yoder, I think he went to Southern Polytech as well. And then he was racing dirt racing. With cars. And so kind of the same thing. So, I mean, he had gotten his hands dirty is what I'm trying to say, right, where you had not.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd never been a big race fan or anything, but obviously, especially back in those days, NASCAR was a big deal. Most GSE people would follow NASCAR. And I think we probably went to a NASCAR race together back in those days with some fun events. So,
so I think I met you probably around 2007 or 2008 so I used to work for Tug, which is now Textron GSE, and you used to come in as a supplier to talk to us about batteries. And I was in sales, and inevitably somebody, a customer would say, "Hey, I'd like an electric tractor," and then I'd have to spec out, the kind of battery that they would need and the kind of charger that they would need to go with that battery. And so my call was always to you because you kind of hold my hand through that process. And that's how I got to know you because you were always giving me such great information. And so I could look good in front of my customer. I leaned on Gabe.
Right. So, that's exactly right. So, fast forward a couple of years after I left Delta, I left Delta, went to work for AeroVironment, was helping them with their PosiCharge product line, kind of promote it to the industry, to the GSE industry. And then shortly after that, decided I wanted to start my own company, and I formed Averest. And one of our goals when I started Averest was to promote electric vehicle technology. I just really had a genuine interest for it. I thought it had a really good fit in the industry. It wasn't very well accepted then, so it was a fight, right? A battle all the time of trying to convince people that, hey, you should consider this as a valid power source. But that's exactly how we approached the industry. So we worked with the Textrons and the JBTs and the Charlottes, and kind of acted more like a consultant than, let's say a sales guy. And we partnered with some really good manufacturers. At that time, East Penn Manufacturing, which is Deca Batteries, was building all the batteries for us. I was still working with PosiCharge, so we were able to provide the chargers and the batteries for these vehicles, which solves a lot of problems, right? So if there was an issue with that system, which is provide the power to the vehicle, then we were there to step in and try to solve it. So that's how we approached the business then, and it's really still how we approach it today. Just a lot more interest today than there's ever been in electric technology.
Oh, that's for sure. So I think what I heard there was you were like Elon Musk before Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon calls me every once in a while and asks for some advice. I don't often have time to take his calls though.
So how did you get involved with Charlotte? So I know they're a large, electric equipment manufacturer that provides electric to our industry. I'm pretty sure you have a great relationship with Rob Lamb. So were they building electric tractors when you started that business?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I do have a great relationship with my brother, Rob Lamb. Shout out to you, Mr. Lamb. We approached the market kind of in an interesting way. We didn't really go try to sell to the airline or the OEMs directly. We worked more directly with the airlines and tried to help them understand, battery technologies, charging technologies, how to properly size a battery for a vehicle. And through that, just those relationships at the airlines just naturally was put in front of, Charlotte and the other OEMs that were making electric baggage tractors and electric belt loaders back then. And, the end result was have supplied Charlotte a lot of batteries for various airlines over the years for lots of different vehicle types, and still do that today. They're a good partner of ours. We've had a lot of fun together. We do a lot of business together, and look forward to that for future years.
So you work with the airlines, the ground handlers, and the OEMs. You touch all three.
That's correct. Yeah, we also work with airports. So
I was about to get to that.
Yeah, so airlines sometimes like to buy batteries directly. Sometimes they want to buy them through the OEMs. Ground handlers are the same way, right? So sometimes they might want to source their batteries directly, so they have direct control over it, or sometimes they might want to leave it up to the vehicle OEM. But so yeah, we work through all channels. Don't really have a preference. We can conduct business any way that the customer chooses. We're a relatively small company, so we're nimble. Obviously enjoy any business we get through any of those partners.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about airport infrastructure and how you've seen that change throughout the years and kind of what you see, moving forward in the future.
Yeah, sure. So there's been a couple big changes in airport infrastructure. One, when we first started business, the airports were not at all interested in buying charging systems and considering that, an airport owned product, right? They were already buying things like loading bridges and ground power units and preconditioned air. That had sort of transitioned over to airport owned. So at that point, the airlines were really our primary customer for the charging system. So, let's say a Delta Airlines who's heavily invested in electric vehicles now, back then may make a decision to buy a handful to put in, let's say, Los Angeles Airport, where there might have been some political reasons or even regulation that they had to meet. And they would buy, the electric vehicles, and they'd also buy the chargers, and then they would hire electrical contractors to install them at airports. So, fast forward to today, almost 20 years later, the airports have really, really got involved and have started providing that infrastructure for the airlines and for the ground handlers, so that, that cost isn't coming out of the airline's capital budget. It's coming out of the airport budget somehow, some way. And I'm sure the airlines eventually pay for that because they're the tenants at the airport and pay the bills. But it really helps the airlines move forward with their electrification initiatives because now they don't have to get the capital money approved for the chargers. They can just simply focus on the ground equipment itself and, select the equipment, select the battery technology they want, and work with the airport for the chargers.
Do you have to help out with like grants and things like that?
We don't get directly involved in grants. We try to educate customers about what grants are available. We were doing more of that, 10, 15 years ago than today. The airlines typically now have people that study and look and research, and one of the things they're always looking for are grant opportunities, right? So any free money they can get. But so we typically just educate as much as get involved with the grant process.
So now you're seeing more of the airports buying the chargers than the airlines.
Yeah, we are. It's shifted that direction over about the last 5 years. I mean, some airlines are still buying chargers directly themselves. United Airlines is a big customer of ours for chargers. So is Delta. We've done a little bit of business with Southwest. We've done some with JetBlue in recent years. Pretty much every airline, even cargo carriers. But since the airports are willing to buy those, that's definitely the preferred method. The only problem with that is the airports obviously are very bureaucratic and move very slow. So sometimes they can't get out of their own way. And even though they may want to and may even have the budget to buy chargers, it takes them so long that, the airlines move at 550 miles an hour at 30,000 feet, right? So they can get things done quicker, and sometimes they choose to do that just for timing reasons.
So what about when we switch from lead acid to lithium, I mean, most of the industry has changed now, I would imagine.
I wouldn't say most of it's changed. I would say most of it's going in that direction.
Okay.
So I got a really interesting story about lithium batteries. So we've been selling lead acid batteries to the industry for a long, long time, right? It's a very stable product. Everybody understands it. Everybody knows it's end of life. Everybody knows what to expect out of it for performance. But it can cause some problems, in particular on an airport, right? Because it requires, routine maintenance. You have to add water to the battery. You have to make sure it's getting charged properly. You have to make sure it's getting equalized. Or, that very expensive battery could be a boat anchor all of a sudden, right? And you have to start over. So we decided a few years back, maybe 6 years ago, to look for different battery technologies to introduce into the market. And we stumbled across lithium as a potential alternative. And, kind of on the back of a napkin, sitting at a bar one day, scratched out how much we thought it would cost to put together a lithium battery and decided, hey, this is probably justifiable. Very expensive. At that point, it was about 3 times the cost of lead acid, but would have at least twice the life and presumably zero maintenance along the way, right? Or routine maintenance, let's say. So we went to market, found a couple suppliers, and put together our own lithium batteries. We took one to a trade show as kind of like a gut check to see if we're the only people in the world that think this is a good idea, or does the industry think this is a good idea? We had overwhelmingly positive feedback from the customers, and then we put that battery in the field for test. We built a few more. Back then, partnered with Delta Airlines to test a few prototypes. Really just proof of concept batteries, and it went really, really, really well. So well that it's at that point had many customers coming to us saying, "Hey, we want hundreds of these things." We didn't have the in-house manufacturing capability to build hundreds of these things. So we went back to the market and tried to find some manufacturers who were building lithium battery packs. And after interviewing several companies, a meeting with several companies, ended up partnering with Flux Power, who is also building lithium battery packs for forklifts. And they let us basically control the design of a battery pack that was going to specifically be used to power baggage tractors and belt loaders. So we took our knowledge set of the industry, applied it on top of the knowledge they had for building and constructing industrial lithium batteries, and out of that came a really, really good product. And had a lot of success with that product lately, and are on generation 3 of that battery pack now. And as I mentioned a minute ago, the industry is because of what we did and because of what other battery companies have done, because of what some of the OEMs have done, the industry is rapidly heading down that path of lithium, or let's just say advanced technology batteries, because there's definitely some other chemistries that are going to be in play in coming years as well.
So if I had a lead acid charger that I had purchased from you and it was at the airport, but now I've decided to switch to lithium, do you all have like converters, or like what does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Luckily, or maybe strategically, the PosiCharge systems that we've supplied to the industry for so many years were already ready to charge lithium batteries. So out of the box, the design features they had built into them with a very simple software upgrade, were able to charge lithium batteries. So when we took this to a customer, we didn't tell them, "Hey, we've got this shiny new sexy battery, and it costs X amount of dollars more than your lead acid batteries. Oh, and by the way, you also have to buy a new charger," right? We didn't have to do that. We were able to introduce the batteries into the marketplace, and by working really closely with PosiCharge, come up with a solution where the chargers the customer already had, with a simple software update, were able to safely and successfully charge the lithium batteries. Since then, there have been some improvements in, I'd say, some of the communication platforms used by these batteries. And so there are some upgrades available today that make that even better, but it's not required. We can charge the lithium batteries we provide to the market on any of the older Posi chargers, and we can do it a little bit better with a small upgrade.
Okay, the small upgrade is like some kind of converter type of thing they can purchase from you directly?
Exactly, yeah. There's it basically adds, it's a board, a circuit board that installs inside the charger, and it adds CAN bus communication capability to the charger, so that then the battery and the charger are directly coupled together via CAN bus. And essentially at that point, the battery is controlling the charger. These lithium batteries are very smart. They have their own battery management systems on board, which is basically a computer. It knows what's best for the battery. And so when you get that CAN bus upgrade, the battery can now control the charger instead of the charger deciding what to do. So it's a very effective way of more efficiently charging the lead acid, or the lithium batteries. Nice.
Okay. So, and then another topic I wanted to cover off with you on is I've seen a lot of these. Well, I was at the GSE Expo. I saw you there, and there's a lot of different companies kind of doing these mobile power units. And I know we're at JBT today, and they kind of launched their product at the show as well. What can you tell me about those? Are you involved in those and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, about 10 years ago, that idea came up. We were actually working with Swissport, who was struggling with charging infrastructure at certain airports, and they needed and wanted to buy electric vehicles. And so we kind of came up with the idea of a diesel generator powered charging cart, which on the surface sounds ridiculous, right? You're going to run a diesel generator to recharge electric vehicles. But in all reality, if you can run one diesel engine at a very high efficiency, that's a big, big benefit in terms of emissions reduction when compared to running, let's say, 10 smaller diesel engines at low efficiency. So you could make the environmental argument that it is better for the environment. You're not putting out as much harmful emissions. So that idea was just batted around. It never got off the ground. But fast forward to today, yes, we partnered with JBT by supplying them a full posi-charge system that's mounted on a trailer. And they coupled that with, I believe, a Cummins generator to do just that. So this concept that we talked about with Swissport years and years ago, kind of finally came around, and JBT's had a lot of interest in that product line. It's not only powered by the diesel generator, though. They have the ability to power that cart using a 480 volt cord, essentially, or a big, large extension cord. I know DHL is going to be launching some of those carts very soon in coming months, and their intention is to power it with a cord, but at least it's a mobile system that they can move from spot to spot, plug it in different places, bring their electric ground equipment to it. And then in the case of an emergency, or if they really need to get really remote with it, they can still fire up the generator to power the charging cart. So I think it's a very good solution. And there's been other versions coming out. We actually developed one in-house ourselves that's a bit different. It's going to be powered by 400 hertz gate power. So, envision this being the size of a bag cart parked at a vacant gate, maybe overnight. The GPU unit on the loading bridge can be plugged into this cart. It powers up all the chargers, and then you can charge 5 vehicles or 5 batteries around that cart, within a couple hour period. So there's a lot of those kind of mobile charging solutions that are being introduced. And the reason is because the airlines are now deploying electric vehicles much faster than fixed charging infrastructure can be put in. And so they're having to come up with all sorts of creative solutions to get energy into these batteries, right? A battery is nothing more than a fuel tank. It stores electricity, and they need to be refueled, right? Every day sometimes. So if there's not enough chargers to do that, they've got to get creative and find other solutions. And that's what they're doing. And some of these things may be temporary. Some of these carts might just be temporary solutions until permanent infrastructure gets installed. But it at least bridges the gap and lets them get closer to their goals of zero emissions GSE.
So are you just working with airports all the time now? I mean, is this just...
Yeah.
The demand has to be crazy.
Yeah, demand is crazy. We are working with airports all the time. The New York... It's not a secret that the New York Port Authority wants every airline and cargo carrier and ground handling company to have 100% electric GSE by a certain date. So we have constant conversations with them about how to get there, because they will need to install a lot of charging infrastructure to do that, right? It's going to take some very creative solutions for them to do that as well, because there's not really enough power at the airport to do what they want to do. So I can envision them, employing some of these new smart power sharing circuits in. So we've got an ability to hook up our posi-charge systems to an existing circuit for a loading bridge, for instance, and use the power that's there for the loading bridge. When the loading bridge is just parked doing nothing, we can use that power to power a charging system. I know ITW has introduced a new product into the industry that helps with that. JBT has a product they've introduced into the industry that helps with that as well. All about using that existing infrastructure, let's say in a smarter way, so that you don't have to install new infrastructure. And in some cases, there's not even a possibility to install new infrastructure. I could see these airports in recent years installing battery systems that store energy within a facility, and then that energy is able to be distributed back out through a charging system to a different battery. Right? So there's going to be all sorts of creative systems put in place to help manage this big infrastructure demand. But there's a lot of really smart people working on it, and the problem will be solved, right? There's no doubt in my mind. Companies like us are always coming up with new ideas and new ways to get energy into the batteries so that the vehicles can go do their job.
So is there, I think you said that there was maybe even alternatives to even lithium. Are you all working on batteries that are even like, is there different technology out there that kind of hasn't been introduced yet?
Yeah, there's a significant number of cell technologies that are being tested and developed and introduced into different industries. I would say most of them are coming out of the automotive industry, but there's one in particular we think might be really, really good for ground equipment. And it's called sodium-ion. We've got cells in-house, battery cells in-house now that some of our engineers are going to be cycle testing to try to learn more about their capabilities. But they have a lot of promise because even though the risk of a lithium battery fire or thermal runaway event is very low, it's still there. And there's certain vehicles that might be too close to an airplane to even live with that risk, right? So I don't know that, lithium batteries is right for every application. So we as a company are very engineering and technology heavy. We're constantly researching the market, looking for different solutions. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're a solutions provider to the customer, not a product provider. So I think in a 12-month period or so, we're going to have developed another battery technology like we did early on with the lithium batteries that we can test and try and learn about. And, maybe that's the next best thing. We don't know yet, a lot of work to do, but yeah, absolutely always looking at different battery technologies and even at times different charging technologies. Again, just trying to solve the problem of getting all this electric equipment charged up that the airlines are buying.
So talk to me about high voltage.
Yeah, so high voltage has made its way into ground equipment, no doubt about it. Our first exposure to it was with Goldhofer's electric high-speed tow-barless tractor, which, by the way, I mean, I'm a guy that really believes in electric technology. I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. Matter of fact, June next year will be our 20th anniversary of being in business, which is going to be a fun thing to celebrate. I never, ever, ever thought that I would see a high-speed tow-barless electric tractor. Low-speed tow-barless electric tractors or just low-speed pushback tractors is a really, really easy problem to solve. The guys at Goldhofer, and girls, I'm sure too, whatever, their engineering team, did some phenomenal work and have put out a very, very impressive machine. So I believe that unit is roughly 800 volts. So that's at the higher end of high voltage, 700 or 800 volts, somewhere around that range. And our first exposure to that has been to supply some charging systems for that particular vehicle. And we've had a lot of success with that. We've learned a lot about that technology through this process. It is essentially, it's not essentially, it is the same charging technology that's used for electric cars. I have 2 electric cars in my family, and we recharge those at night in our garage, but which works fine for daily driving. But if you're going to get these things on the highway and drive them across the country, you need some high speed, high voltage, high capacity charging systems, and that's exactly what we're introducing on airports now to recharge that Goldhofer tractor. There's also there are also other vehicles. I know Textron's introduced a high voltage baggage tractor, or really just, let's say, battery system into the marketplace. So there's going to be more and more of that find its way onto the ramp alongside of, the low voltage. High voltage is not necessarily the solution for everything, but it's definitely going to be mixed in with the, let's say what's more common is the low voltage or the 80 volt platform that's so popular today. And all that GSE is going to be operated right next to Ford Lightning pickup trucks, maybe a Tesla or two, Ford Transit vans, Silverado EV pickup trucks, all those vehicles are going to make their way onto the ramp too, because, as we know, it's not just purpose-built ground equipment at an airport. There's all kinds of vehicles running around to move people or do different jobs. And those are going to have to be charged as well. So that's kind of interesting because that same charging infrastructure could do both at that point.
Yeah. So again, the same kind of question I asked you before, which is like, so your chargers, will they be capable, like the chargers that you've currently, got into the marketplace, will those chargers be able to be capable of doing like a high voltage charge?
Yes, great question. So not today, but there is a project well underway to develop a high voltage posi-charge power station. The design intent behind that product is that, let's say you have a 8-port charging system now. You could pull one power station out, put this new high voltage power station in its place without adding any additional infrastructure to the airport. And now you've just gained the capability of charging, one of these higher voltage batteries off the same existing infrastructure. So kind of a hardware change out, a system upgrade, whatever you want to call it. It's being developed, and I think it's a brilliant idea. And we're hoping to introduce that sometime before the end of 2024. Probably Q6 2024. We'll have that in the marketplace.
Awesome, man. So I'm going to go a little bit outside of your realm of knowledge here. Maybe, I'm not sure. So talk to me a little bit about hydrogen. I think I've heard some rumblings in the GSE community about hydrogen possibly being an alternative fuel that people are going to look at. Do you know anything about that technology, and like what are your thoughts? I mean, just dealing with the airports and the infrastructure concerns that you've been dealing with for 20 years. What do you think about that?
Right. So we don't deal with any hydrogen technologies directly, but being like I mentioned, a very high tech kind of company we are, with a lot of engineers that geek out over fun new power products. We follow it closely. We have conversations with hydrogen fuel cell companies, or maybe even companies that are interested in internal combustion engines that run off hydrogen. I think hydrogen will have a place on the airport, or at various airports. Let's say, if I understand it correctly, the Cincinnati airport has kind of made big investments in some hydrogen infrastructure. But that's the key, right? So when I say there's limited infrastructure at an airport to recharge a battery, there's at least electricity there, right? That we can tap into and we can do things. There's not tanks of hydrogen. There's not pipelines of hydrogen that are set in place to refuel these vehicles or to refuel a fuel cell even. So that is the biggest obstacle to what I think is a really big problem to get hydrogen onto an airport.
There's a large barrier to entry, it seems like.
Yeah. Very large barrier to entry. And then couple that with the fact that, let's talk about hydrogen fuel cells for a second. So a hydrogen fuel cell, takes that hydrogen and generates electricity. It has to have a battery typically, or a supercapacitor, something of those effects, to store some of that energy, to act like a buffer between itself and the vehicle. And they're very complicated and they require a lot of maintenance. So they sound great on the surface until you start digging into the details, and they become very, very complicated very quickly. And then now let's compare that to an electric vehicle with a battery, maybe a lithium battery or a solid state battery technology that requires almost zero maintenance. All you have to do is charge it. Just a much simpler system, right? And our industry needs to think simply sometimes and not overcomplicate things. So I'm not anti-hydrogen at all. I think it's cool. I think the environmental impacts of burning hydrogen are great, right? You just get water out of the tailpipe. Fuel cells are cool, sexy technology, but that infrastructure issue is gonna really slow it down. If not, you just completely stop it from making its way onto some airports. Yeah.
So thanks for covering that with me. I really appreciate it. So, is there anything else that Averest is working on that I need to be aware of?
Yeah. So I mentioned our charging cart that can charge or can be powered from a 400 hertz ground power unit that's at a gate, right? That product kind of came about because over the last couple of years, we've been developing and supplying onboard chargers that go on primarily on pushback tractors at this point, but they have a really good use case for pushback tractors, container loaders, maybe even belt loaders, any of that equipment that stays parked at the gate area. And the reason it's a strong use case is these onboard chargers are also powered from 400 hertz. So envision this, right? A pushback tractor pushes a plane back, takes a few minutes. Maybe the battery capacity goes from 100% to 80% during that pushback. Pushback tractor now drives back to the gate and parks. You've got this 90 kVA ground power unit, or sometimes even 100 kVA ground power unit hanging, where the cord hanging right there next to where the pushback tractor parks. The operators can now take that cord, plug it right into the side of the pushback tractor, and before the next plane gets there, now that battery is fully charged again. So that's been our latest innovation. It's been really, really well received by a few airlines, and we're seeing a lot of demand. We're constantly spinning out new designs now for different vehicle types because it's not a one size fits all. We've got to find places to mount these chargers on the vehicles, but that's kind of the latest and greatest, and something we're very, very excited about. It's not going to solve all the problems. Like none of the solutions we have solve all the problems, but it definitely helps, get another vehicle deployed that's electric without having to go add extra infrastructure, right? That's the key.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So how was your expo? How was your GSE expo experience?
Oh man, mind blowing, exhausting. I was talking to somebody today about that here at JBT that is probably the first expo that I've been to where we've exhibited that I never left our booth other than to go back to the hotel at night, go hit a bar, get some dinner, go to bed, and then rinse and repeat, as I say. Which means I missed out on a lot of stuff, right? I didn't get to see a lot of friends, a lot of business partners that were also exhibiting, but that's okay. I mean, that's just a sign of our times. I mean, it's validation that the decision I made, nearly 20 years ago to help airlines with electric ground equipment has paid off. I mean, we are as a company, almost to 20 employees now. I told you we're pretty small, which is just mind blowing. I never thought we'd be more than about 5 employees. Our revenues are obviously much higher than ever. And, we're reinvesting all that. One of the ways we're reinvesting some of that revenue, by the way, is back in our employees. So another little nugget for the industry that some people know about and some don't, because I'm not a guy to brag a lot about what we do. But at the end of 2022, I turned our business into 100% employee owned through what's known as an ESOP. So I was the founder, the owner, the shareholder, right? So I've now sold my ownership back to the business, and that ownership is now gifted or given to employees on an annual basis, so they can reap some of the rewards and enjoy some of the successes we're having as well. Really exciting thing to do.
That's incredible.
Yeah, very very exciting. I'm not going anywhere, right? Don't think that. I mean, Gabe's going to disappear in a couple of years. I've got plenty of years left in me, but it does give me peace of mind knowing that there's at least eventually a way out of the business, and makes me super happy to know that now that the profitability of the company directly affects every employee individually. As they gain ownership over years, they're gonna do pretty well.
Man, that's awesome. You got some lucky employees there.
Yeah. I guess so. I mean, I look at it the other way around. I'm lucky to have them, right? I mean, we've got some really, really good people that deserve this. So I want to see this business, live on without me. And I think it's a really effective way to do that. We've got some young, very smart, talented individuals that, are going to be having these conversations with the next Matt Weitzel, episode number 154 of the GSE podcast is going to be, right, some of our young talent in a few years. So excited to see that happen.
So are you going to any other conferences this year, or what are you looking at next year for conferences and expos?
Yeah. So I know we've got the Southwest Airlines event coming up. They do their own kind of mini trade show, I call it, their own supplier conference.
I think they have the margarita cart there, or they at least used to. Do you remember the margarita cart from Tug?
Yeah.
From my understanding, that thing still exists, and Southwest has it. Now I can neither confirm nor deny that, but I don't know if you've seen that there before, the blue juice.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're referring to. I had a few of those margaritas through my years, like we all have. Yeah, I've not seen it at the event, but I'm sure it's still floating around. But,
okay.
But anyway, Southwest Airlines has this wonderful
Send
event.
me a picture.
Yeah, sure will.
Okay.
Yeah. They put on a wonderful event, invited some key suppliers in. Like I said, do kind of a mini trade show. They take that opportunity to bring in their GSE management team from all over the country, do some training, some meetings, some high level executives come in and do presentations to the employees of Southwest plus to us suppliers. So we've got that coming up. That's always really exciting and really fun. Very, very focused. I always come away from that, proud to participate, and just happy to be there. And then I think that'll probably wrap up the year for conventions or trade shows, things that I can think of. But we're definitely keeping an eye on Portugal, right? So
yeah, for sure.
Lisbon. So we'll definitely be there. Excited to exhibit. That actually would be our first time exhibiting at that particular event. I've attended it. I've walked it. I've been there with other companies. We've never exhibited because we just haven't done or didn't see the need to market what we do in Europe as much, but we do now. So we've got a few opportunities in Europe already, and we see that as maybe a good opportunity to get the word out about what we do and how we might be able to help.
Yeah, that's a great question. So you all do stuff outside of the United States. Are you in Canada? Are you in Europe?
We do. We do quite a bit of business up in Canada. We've got a partner up there, GTA Aviation, the Durso boys, which are good partners to have to help us out a bit in Canada. We do a little bit in South America. We had to deal with Copa Airlines over the last year or so where we put some chargers in to recharge some ground equipment, and always looking for the next opportunity to help. Right, so we think the European marketplace is somewhere we might go to next, right? We're going to find out. We never want to go into a marketplace that we can't service. I mean, that's one thing I probably didn't mention yet is how big we are on service. When I say we're a very high tech company, I mean we've got me and one sales guy, right? That's our sales team at the moment, Brian Lash, and then we've got a plethora of technicians, engineers who do nothing but product support or product testing or product development. Either in-house or with our partner manufacturers. So really, really, really big believer in that. So before we ever dip our toe into, let's say, the European market, we're going to make sure we have a support staff of some sort, whether it be our own staff or we partner with a third-party company. I want to make sure that any product we sell into that marketplace, we can fix if it breaks, right? We want to be there to help. That's key in this industry. It's a core value of ours. It's quite frankly how we built our reputation, and I think have been so successful as a result of that. So yeah, hoping to grow in Europe, but got to put the right pieces in place first.
Yeah. And as I said before, the way that I met you was just through your support of Tug and me when I had trouble with my customers, and, knowing what charger to match with what battery and what technology was out there. And that's how we met. And I got to tell you, you're fantastic at the support piece, and your entire company is. And I think that's the reason you're still in business today and in the 20 years coming up. So what are you doing for 20 years? Are we going to have some big blowout that I'm going to get invited to? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, that's a good point. I've not got my head around that yet, but there will certainly be a celebration of sorts.
Yeah, we got to do something, man.
I guess my initial thoughts was definitely all our employees. There's going to be a big party. We'll bring in the kegs and the whatever we need to do. We're going to have a good time.
Blowout.
But I love your idea of bringing in partners too, right? So why not invite some customers in?
Yeah. And then a famous podcast host. You know what I mean? Just whatever you got to do really to get everybody out there.
You and Mr. Rogan might come in town. We'll do another podcast.
Yeah, I'll call him. I'll let him know.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'd not really thought about it at all, other than I know it's coming. I know it's a big milestone. I remember when we went through our 10th anniversary, which we were a much smaller company then, but it was still a really good feeling to know that, hey, we survived, right? It hasn't always been easy, but we survived, and we've profited, and we've solved a lot of problems, developed a lot of relationships. As you know, this industry is built on relationships. This GSE thing gets in your blood, and people might change companies, might move around a bit, but they're put on a different shirt, but they're always at the trade show.
Yeah, they never leave GSE.
No, they don't.
I tried it one time and I came right back.
That's great. They're always sitting next to you shoulder to shoulder at the bar after a long day at the trade show, right? Sipping down some cold ones because, we all need that R&R time just as much as we need our work life.
Yeah. So I know you got one child, two.
I do. Yeah. I got one child. I tell everybody that we got it right the first time, so we didn't need to have any more.
Dude, that's what I tell people.
Yeah. Well,
I've only got one one as well.
I patented that, Matt. So you have to pay me royalties.
I heard the genius somewhere. I didn't know it was from you.
Yeah. So, I got one daughter, super proud of her. She's 17, learning to fly, wants to be a commercial airline pilot. So if any of your airlines are listening, got your next best employee.
There we go, man. Yeah, so she's 17 and she's already a pilot.
Yeah, well, learning to be a pilot, right? So she's about halfway through her private pilot's license. Really loves it, and which is kind of interesting because I learned to fly a few years ago myself just for the challenge and the fun. Kind of gave up on it because I just got busy with other stuff. And I tell everybody that if you're going to be a pilot, you have to be. That has to be your passion, right? You need to be flying all the time to keep yourself safe, keep the plane maintained. And I have a lot of other interest in life, a lot of hobbies. And so after I learned to fly, I got my instrument rating, crisscrossed the country a few times, had all kinds of great experiences, almost crashed several times, fun stories come out of that stuff. But I kind of got too busy and opted to just kind of put flying aside and do other stuff. But, fast forward a few years after that, and my daughter just out of the blue one day expressed interest and said, hey, I think I want to go fly an airplane. I was like, okay, we can do that. So, found a little local flight school, arranged an introductory lesson with her. I had the opportunity to go fly with her that day. Super fun. She immediately was hooked, and, off to the races she went, or let's say off to the skies she went.
Yeah, exactly.
So she's a little more than halfway done with getting her private pilot's license, laser focused on it as she finishes her last year in high school, and looking to continue that in college. So
that is so cool, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
We've not made a college decision yet, but going down to tour Auburn next week. Mr. Lamb.
Mr. Lamb must be really excited.
Yeah, Mr.
Is he
Lamb
making phone calls for you?
Yeah, he said he's gonna call in, and I told him not to, because if he calls in, I might not get a spot there for my daughter. But
that's what I was gonna say. I was like, be careful about those phone calls.
Absolutely. But Mr. Reeves as well. I know he's an Auburn grad. So yeah, we're gonna go tour that campus next week. They have a really, really good aviation program partnered with Delta Airlines. And so it's one she's interested in. She's also looked at a couple other schools. Montana State's another one that she's really interested in, up in Bozeman, that has they have a really good flight school and a path to the airlines, right? So she she wants to go get a degree. She wants the college experience, but wants to learn to fly at the same time. So
we have Embry-Riddle down here.
Yeah, Embry-Riddle is another good choice. She's not looked at that one yet, but like I said, we haven't made a decision.
I can't make any calls for you. I'm sorry, I don't have any connections over there.
Yeah, so excited to see her make that decision. Right, we're trying to help her guide her down that path, and wish her the best. And
for sure, we all do. The GSE industry is behind her.
Yeah, I can't wait to board a plane one day coming home from a Vegas trade show, and there's my kid.
Yeah, so maybe she'll make sure you get up in first class or something.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Or maybe she'll let me ride in the jump seat.
There we go. Even better.
Put her in the left seat and put me in the jump seat.
Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. And, if anybody needs anything from Averest, go online or connect with Brian Leash or yourself on LinkedIn, and I'm sure you guys can help take care of them. Yeah,
absolutely. We're on LinkedIn webpage. We all got cell phones in our pockets all day long. We do answer the phone, and we love helping solve problems, right? So that's what I geek out about, right? I don't geek out about all the business stuff and the numbers and the sales. I mean, none of that matters to me at the end of the day. I really get excited when we get to solve a problem and help a customer. So yeah, anybody should be able to find us these days and be glad to help.
There you go, man. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. And this has been Matt and Gabe for the GSE Podcast.
I'm Raven Honsaker, and you have been listening to the GSE Podcast.